42.
Yeah.
43.
Yeah.
79.
79.
Murder is obviously the most serious crime we have.
I think it would be fair to say that this is a huge case. Someone's life is very much going to be affected by how the case goes and the eventual outcome.
This is an allegation of murder, which has an unusual feature in the sense that we don't have a body.
I mean, there's nothing more than I would love than to fight Arlene.
Just one clue that she's all right.
There's no blood staining. There's no weapon. The accused has accounted for his movements on the critical day, so that makes it that bit more tricky.
Good morning.
Call the Diet, Her Majesty's Advocate against Nat Gordon Fraser. Sit down, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lord Advocate has sent one of his deputies to prosecute the case, so we refer to the prosecuting counsel as the Advocate Depute. The defence, represented by Mr. Scott, who's on the other side of the table nearest to me, the Crown have brought this charge against the accused. It is therefore for the Crown to prove the case against an accused person. An accused person is presumed to be innocent unless and until proven guilty.
Courts, unfortunately, tend to deal with a very sad diet of kids that have got themselves too drunk and got into a fight in a pub or in the street. When you get down to brass tacks, what makes Nat Fraser a different kind of trial? There is a charge of murder, but at the same time, there's no body. And you think, well, how on earth does a prosecution tackle something like that? And then you've got an investigation that's been going on for 14 years for Arlene Fraser's family. What on earth are they going to think if they don't get a final resolution after all these years? And then for the man in the street, you've got the possibility that somebody is going to get away with the perfect murder.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a trial in Scotland, there are no opening speeches, and we proceed directly to hear the evidence. I'm going to ask the Advocate Depute to call his first witness. Advocate Depute.
Thank you, my lord. The first witness for the Crown is Mrs. Isabel Thompson.
Will you raise your right hand and say the words of the oath after me? I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that I will tell the truth,
that I will tell the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Advocate Depute.
Thank you, my lord. Am I right in saying that you are the mother of Arlene Fraser?
Yes,
Did she start seeing a man by the name of Nat Fraser?
yes,
And am I right in saying that she later married Mr. Nat Fraser?
yes,
And would you recognise Nat Fraser if you saw him again?
yes,
Do you see him in court today?
yes,
Could you formally point to him, please?
in the middle.
And just for record purposes, you've pointed to the man in the blue shirt in between the two security officers in the dock. I'd like you to look at a photograph for us, please, which we'll put on the screen. Do you recognise that as a photograph of Arlene Fraser?
Yes,
You have another daughter, Carol, is that correct?
yes.
Did they get on well together?
Not always, as sisters often,
Sisters.
you know, fall out. Different personalities. Carol was a quieter type of person. Arlene was more outgoing.
Was Nat Fraser a little older than Arlene when they got married?
Yes.
By how much, do you know?
I think about 4 years.
Jamie and Natalie are the children of Arlene Fraser and Nat Fraser, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
How did you think Arlene would fare as a mother?
It was quite surprising, actually. She made a very good mother. I didn't expect it of her, but she turned out to be a very good mother, very loving.
Were arrangements always made for the children to be looked after, for example, if Arlene and Nat were not to be there?
Oh yes, there'd always someone for babysitting here.
Was there ever an occasion when Arlene would not make arrangements for the children and effectively leave them on their own?
No.
As a prosecutor, I have to think about the case in a logical way, because essentially I have to tell the jury a story, and I think the jury are entitled to expect me as a prosecutor to lead evidence in a logical, often chronological and easy to understand way. Does your house have a back garden?
It does, yes.
And from the back garden, do you have a view of 2 Smith Street in Elgin?
Yes. Because it was a nice day, I was out doing gardening. Something caught the corner of my eye and I just looked up and Arlene was out in the garden.
What was she doing?
It was like she was checking to see if her washing was dry. It was just a glance. I sort of just looked up and saw her and then I went back to doing what I was doing.
Did you see Arlene Fraser again?
No, no,
Have you ever seen her since then?
no.
Would you describe yourself as a close friend of Arlene Fraser?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is to show a film, and I understood it was filmed on the 29th of April. We have a view of the front door. That's the sort of view you would have had as you entered the building.
That's right. I walked through to the living room. And she wasn't there. So I had a look in the kitchen. And she wasn't there either. I think I checked her bedroom just to see if she was still in her bed. And I checked the bathroom as well, just in case she was in.
Any sign of her?
No.
If Arlene Fraser had decided that enough was enough and she was off to live a new life somewhere, was there any sign of her having taken clothing with her?
No.
There was no obvious gap in the...
Not in the wardrobe, no.
We can see washing on a washing line?
Yes.
Did you check Natalie's room?
Yes, I
I remember a few people saying to me, do you think she's left? And I suppose when I was younger, I probably thought she did, because I didn't know, things like this happened, But now, I don't believe she's left. I don't. Especially when I hear she was a good mother, I just think, no way.
What did you think happened?
I think she was murdered. I just don't know.
In the early part of 1998, were you employed by Taylor and Fraser, a fruit and vegetable wholesaler company?
Yes, I was.
At the time, Mr. Fraser's business, is that right?
That's correct.
And what was your job when you worked for Taylor and Fraser?
I was Nat's lorry boy.
Nat's lorry boy.
I wouldn't say it was really boss, employee. I mean, we're just like good mates. He was quite a funny guy. He was well liked in Elgin. Just Jack the lad, Everybody knew he liked the women, especially blondes.
I'd like to ask you about the Tuesday, the 28th of April, 1998. That's a day when we've heard Arlene Fraser went missing. Were you working that day with Mr. Fraser?
I was, yes. It was just a normal day. I mean, it was just like any other Tuesday. Got up in the morning, got to work, done our deliveries.
Bennett's Chip Shop in Keith, the Tartan Tint Restaurant in Keith, G&M Butchers in Keith, and then Gleason's Photo Shop in Keith, Spar Spiny Store in Keith, and Strathyla Cafe Keith, the Deli Shop in Keith, and Thompson's Butchers in Keith. Are those all premises you visited that day?
Yes.
And throughout the whole process, was Mr. Fraser in your company?
Yes, he was. It was just a normal working Tuesday. I mean, it couldn't have been any more normal.
Do you think he did it?
Not sure. Undecided. But I know it wasn't him that actually taken her from the house. That's for a fact, because he was with me.
Well, that might be a suitable time to stop for lunch.
So we'll stop now for a late lunch and sit again at 2:45.
Board.
I was utterly amazed at the end of the first trial when I switched on the radio that night and the BBC report said, a man has been jailed for life for murdering his wife. The body of Arlene Fraser has never been found. Frankly, in many respects, the Crown case against Fraser is very, very thin.
If we had 2 eyewitnesses, this case would be finished in a day, but we don't. So we have to work with the material we have. The Crown has to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt, which is quite a high standard. If we fail to do that, then there will be an acquittal.
In the High Court number 3 is that Arlene Fraser. Court number 3.
Are you Peter Hall?
I am.
Are you a police constable with Grampian Police?
I am, yes.
On the evening of Tuesday, 28th April 1998, you were made aware that there had been a report of a missing person, Arlene Fraser.
That's correct, yes.
Did you go to their home address?
I did, yes.
Did you enter the house?
I did.
Did you notice anything on the doorstep?
Yeah, there was a note.
And was that a note in a child's handwriting?
Yes.
That's Jamie, who was 10 at the time. And it says, I was home at 7:30, you not in, I am over at Mark's. Where are you? And the you in capitals and an exclamation mark.
I never talked about it with anybody in my family. Especially when I was younger, I just chose to ignore it, I think. I just accepted that I never had a mum.
And what do you remember about your mum?
Not a lot at all. I just remember being ice skating with her, but I can't remember her being there. I remember she used to always listen to the Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, and I remember that song being played in my house, but that's it. I can't ever remember holding her hand or cuddling her or anything like that. She's pregnant with me there. It's me there.
Can you miss something you've never had?
I think I tried to think like that once, but it's easier said than done. The day she went missing, she waved us off to school. I try and remember the last day, but I can't.
When you're talking about an investigation where there's no body, most of the evidence tends to be put under probably one label, and that is, how did the accused act in the aftermath of the incident?
Did you speak with Mr. Fraser?
I did, yes.
Okay. How did he appear to you?
Quite calm. We were asking where he thought his wife, Arlene, could have gone.
And did he give an answer to that?
Well, he couldn't give any answer. He was expressing his concerns where she could have been, couldn't say where she had been.
During that conversation, did he make any reference to money?
He did, yes. He informed me there was 2 stashes of money within the house, one within the gun cabinet in the loft, and the other one would have been behind an air vent in Arlene's bedroom. The vent was only held on by one screw. I believe it was the top left one.
What did you do to investigate that further?
I took a chair or something, stood in it, had a look, couldn't see any money, put my hand inside the vent and couldn't feel anything either.
Right. Did he suggest why that might be relevant in any way?
Well, I assumed he was suggesting that she may have taken it to go away.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Scott.
When you first saw Nat Fraser, you accept that he was expressing surprise at his wife's absence?
Yeah, he was expressing concern, yes.
And he appeared to be genuinely concerned about that?
Yeah, he did, yes.
He suggested that he could phone the hospitals?
Phone them or visit them.
And am I right in saying that he was told that he shouldn't do that, the police would deal with that?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Constable, that's all.
Quite a lot of people have said to me, you and Arlene weren't that close, because we fought like cat and dog. But if I walk into a card shop to buy a card, I have to make sure that I don't see the word sister, because that really hurts. It really hurts. And I feel really, really protective of her, you know, and I really feel that she's been wronged.
Are you Carol Ann Gillis?
Yes, I am.
You have a sister, Arlene Fraser, is that correct?
I had a sister.
You had a sister,
yes.
Fraser, Arlene Fraser.
Yes. 2 sisters, there's only 20 months between. We shared a childhood, and that's most of all what I miss about Arlene not being here. I'm her big sister. It was when we were young, Mum would say, "Oh, you look after Arlene," and that's still within me.
In due course, did you become aware that Arlene met a man called Nat Fraser?
That's correct, yes.
And subsequently married Nat Fraser?
Yes.
Do you see Nat Fraser here today?
I do. He's in the dock in the pale blue shirt.
Thank you very much.
It was just a normal wedding day. At the end, he did play his guitar for her. And that was nothing but charming, friendly, chatty, helpful guy.
If we move on to 97 and 1998, were you in touch with Arlene Fraser around that time?
Yes.
Did you form an impression about how happy she was within the marriage?
I was concerned about her. Yes.
Was she happy or not?
She was unhappy.
To an extent, did things come to a head?
She was seeking a divorce. She had been to see her lawyer.
Right.
I think he thought that she was seeing someone else.
Okay. Did you receive a telephone call in the early hours of the 29th of April?
No.
Or a visit, rather?
A visit from Strathclyde.
Strathclyde police came to your house. Would that be about 2 in the morning?
Yes, it was. I knew Arlene was dead. It's just a gut instinct, just because, I don't know, maybe a sister thing. I just knew that that was it.
Are you William Robertson?
Yes.
Am I right in saying that you have retired from Grampian Police, and the point of your retirement, you held the rank of Detective Inspector?
That's correct. 32 and a half years police service.
Would you recognise Nat Fraser if you saw him again?
Yes.
And do you see him here today?
Yes.
And you've pointed to the man in the blue shirt.
That's correct.
Between the 2 security officers in the dock?
Yep.
Thank you. You received information from colleagues that Arlene Fraser had been reported missing.
That's correct.
Did you decide that it would be beneficial to go and see Mr. Fraser?
It was imperative that I spoke to Nat Fraser as soon as possible.
What time was it that you attended
at 03:15 in the morning. Right. We knocked on the door, and the door was opened almost immediately. And Nat Fraser came to the door. He said he'd been sleeping, but he didn't look as if he'd just woken up. His clothing was dishevelled. He was dirty, grubby looking, as if he'd been working. Stewy. Murrayshire's quite sandy. If somebody's working, they can be quite dusty,
Yes. Did you notice anything else about his condition?
Very nervous. He couldn't speak to us. His tongue was stuck to the roof of his mouth. He was trying to get the word out, but he couldn't.
A missing person could have a range of explanations. Did you raise the possibility of suicide with Mr. Fraser?
A tear came to his eye, and I remember him saying, I don't want to think about that. But again, he said it, but I didn't get the feeling he meant it.
All right, thank you.
If you see me asking questions, there should be a good reason for that.
Mr. Scott.
Last one. The point of cross-examination is not simply to allow lawyers a chance to get some air in their lungs or to strut about the court. The purpose of cross-examination is to ensure that the accused person gets a fair trial.
Initially you'd said he was dishevelled, dirty and grubby looking. Did you use the word stewy?
It's a Murray word. Dirty, as if he'd been covered in dust or...
Right. And did you suggest that... Is Murray quite sandy, did you say?
Yes.
Right. And did he have sand on him?
That's what it kind of looked like. It was dusty.
So it was not dirt as in he'd been...
It wasn't muddy.
...baking in a field. Is the word dusty better than perhaps...
Well, dirty. Dirty.
Right.
But he wasn't muddy.
And his clothes were crumpled?
Crumpled, as if he'd been lying somewhere.
Right.
But he didn't look as if he'd been sleeping. He'd just,
But you don't know if he had or not?
From my experience as a police officer, coming across people sleeping in the cell block, they're a bit druggy.
Presumably, having observed dust or dirt or whatever, you obviously asked him about that.
I kept my powder dry on some of that stuff.
Meaning you didn't?
Had he anything to do with his wife's disappearance, at that time, I was not in a position to take possession of his clothing. I would be revealing my hand to him in case I needed his clothing for forensics.
Is it possible that there is any element of exaggeration in the account you've given of Mr. Fraser?
No, none whatsoever.
You asked if his wife had ever contemplated suicide, and he had a tear in his eye?
Yes.
But didn't seem upset?
It was there for show, and that was it.
He actually faked tears for show?
No. There wasn't any real feeling there.
There were real tears without real feeling?
Yes.
Right, okay.
His eyes filled with tears. Crocodile tears.
Arlene Fraser was last seen in Elgin on the 28th of April. Today, her husband, Nat Fraser, said he had no idea what's happened to her and revealed details of a £20,000 reward for information on her disappearance.
I'd like to take this opportunity to appeal to anyone with information as to the current whereabouts of my wife, Arlene. Please come forward with any information, no matter how trivial it may seem to you.
Did you have a discussion with Mr. Fraser about how to go about that press conference?
I just told him to see what he felt.
And how did he cope with that?
Well, he didn't. He had to read it off a bit of paper.
Arlene, if you're watching this, then please get in touch, just to let us all know that you're safe and well. The children are missing you terribly. If you do not want to come home just now, at least let us know you're all right.
I didn't think he was very enthusiastic to find out anything about Arlene. We were trying in every direction to find out something, but he just was quite happy to feed off us.
Just one phone call, Arlene, just one. Or if any of her friends know anything.
We can't understand why this has happened. It's just one clue that she's all right.
We've got a mum of 2. She hasn't been seen for a period of time. And that's pretty much it. Early doors, we were looking for anything that might have a bearing on how she lived or how she disappeared.
From the first examination that you had, was there any sign that you could see with the eye of blood staining or anything of significance?
No, no blood staining was found.
Okay.
A subsequent examination used a chemical reagent which would detect invisible quantities of blood.
Did you find any signs of blood staining?
No. This was a very clean house. This was probably extraordinary in the history of crime scenes that I've examined.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
People think that there will always be forensic evidence which will solve the case. That's not always the case.
I swear by Almighty God
that I will tell the truth.
that I will tell
This is a circumstantial case.
the whole truth.
What the Crown is essentially doing is bringing a number of circumstances which in themselves may not be suspicious, may not even point towards guilt, but it is the combination of those facts and circumstances when brought together that an invitation will be made to the jury to convict. Did you meet with Arlene Fraser to discuss her matrimonial problems and to seek some advice?
Yes.
February 1998, was there certainty about whether there would be a divorce or not?
No. There was a suggestion that perhaps a trial separation may be preferable. And my note says she told me that he doesn't want a divorce.
March 1998, am I right in saying that Arlene Fraser spoke to you?
That's right, yes.
Would you say she was happy at all?
No, she was
not happy.
Not happy.
Did she want a divorce?
Certainly. I have noted, and I see this in my own handwriting, that she made reference to the fact that her telephone calls were being recorded.
And who did she think was doing that?
She told me that her husband was recording her telephone calls.
Did you take some instructions regarding her financial position?
I recall that she didn't know a great deal about the finances, but I believe that I had told her that we needed to find information out about those.
Because if you don't know what the financial arrangements within the marriage are, you can't give advice as to what her entitlement would be.
Exactly.
Did you get anywhere close to knowing the true financial worth of Nat Fraser in this case?
No.
And of course, we'll never know, will we? Because Arlene Fraser disappeared in the midst of all of this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lennon, that's all.
What about your gut instinct?
There's the objective side of me that fills the forensic science report. Then there's the subjective side, what I think personally. I don't think somebody died in that house. I have no evidence for that. But it just speaks to somebody being whisked away.
So we're going to rattle through about sort of half a dozen or sort of 10 witnesses today.
I'm getting married on the 4th of August, so I do have a long stop.
Well done. Where are you having?
The Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
So when you speak at the wedding breakfast, you're going to refer to the prior statements of all the guests.
I don't know another way of working now, apart from that. So if we finish before the 4th of August, that would be quite good. The honeymoon starts on the 6th of August. So.
I've got another 2 murder trials to do in that time.
Court.
I do recall when I started off as a judge, it was a terrible temptation to get involved. But now I think, my goodness, thank goodness I'm not doing that. It's a great privilege to sit above it all and let it happen. I like to keep an eye on what the jury are doing and how they're responding. I think this jury are careful and will not make up their minds until they do go into the jury room and start analysing the evidence.
Are you Hector McInnes?
Yes.
You are the father of 2 daughters, Arlene and Carol, is that correct?
Yes. You read about these things happening to other people, but you never think it will happen to you. And it's quite a shock when it does happen to you. It takes a lot to take it on board. But even after 14 years, it's still raw.
Would you recognise Mr. Fraser if you saw him again?
Yes.
And do you see him today? And point to him if you do. Okay.
Mr. McInnes, obviously you're helping with the search today. You must be very pleased at the amount of people that have turned out.
Can't thank them enough. Things that used to concern me before, I'm just not interested. It doesn't bother me anymore. Can't pay the bills, so what? Because the worst that could happen to me has happened to me.
Was there an occasion when you were in the kitchen at 2 Smith Street when you saw Mr. Fraser?
Yes. I was sitting at the table. I sat down. I was a wee bit agitated. And then he said the Bairns would soon forget their mother.
The Bairns will soon forget their mother?
Yes.
Bairns, of course, being children?
Yes.
At that point, had anyone said to you Arlene Fraser was dead?
No.
No. The Bairns will soon forget their mother.
How much are you behind your dad?
I don't even have an if or a but or a doubt. There's no other way for me thinking apart from, believing in him. Obviously, the last time he was at home, I was a lot younger, but we were just always together. I was quite a tomboy. We used to just go fishing and just always having fun.
Has your dad ever said to you, "I've not done it"?
I remember when we were younger, him saying to me, this is one of the only things I ever said, he said, "Do you miss your mum?" And I was younger, but I don't even know what I said, but I remember him saying, "Yeah, me too," and just cuddling me. I don't need him to say it. And I'm so glad that he's fighting because, he doesn't want that name. He doesn't want people to think that's him.
Who do you think did it?
Hector Dick. 100%.
Advocate Deputy.
My Lord, the next witness is Crown Witness number 1, Hector Dick. What is your occupation?
Farmer.
And how long have you been a farmer?
All my working life.
How long have you known Nat Fraser?
Early 1980s. They bought potatoes from me.
And as that continued, did you become friends?
Yes.
He was the best man at your wedding?
That's correct, yes.
Do you recall seeing him one Sunday, latter part of April 1998?
Yes.
Did he ask you to do anything on that occasion?
He asked me to source a car for him.
A man has told how he sold a car to a farmer the day before Elgin woman Arlene Fraser disappeared from her home. Police believe that car is now central to unlocking the mystery of what happened to Mrs. Fraser.
Local mechanic Kevin Ritchie claimed he'd supplied the car to Dick, a friend of Arlene Fraser's husband.
We now want to trace the beige-coloured Mark II Ford Fiesta motor car, registration mark B.
The police became convinced the Ford Fiesta was the key to Arlene Fraser's disappearance because they believed that she had been murdered and that the car had been used to dispose of the body.
He asked you to source a car for him?
Yes. He was needing a car, and he was needing a car for himself.
For himself?
Yes.
Quite clear about that?
Yes. I think that was the day he made the comment, if people disappear and the body is never found, they can never prosecute.
So you now had possession of the Fiesta. Did you make contact with Mr. Fraser? How would he know that you had the car?
I'd told him earlier. He knew the car would be there.
The next morning, this of course is now the Tuesday when Arlene Fraser went missing.
Yes.
Okay? Was there a point in the morning when you noticed the car was not there?
Yes.
When was that?
7:30.
On the Thursday, the 30th of April, did you have a conversation with Mr. Fraser?
Yes. He says, there's been a problem, the car is coming back to you.
Page 13 of your statement, does it say, I asked Nat what was happening, and he replied, quote, we have had a wee bit of a scrape, unquote.
Yeah.
Were you working at your farm on the Sunday?
Yes.
Did you notice anything?
Yes, the car had returned.
Do you understand you don't know who brought it to the farm, is that right?
No.
Okay.
I was curious and had a good look round it and had a look in through the back window.
Did you see anything in the car?
It was basically empty.
Was there any person in the car?
No.
No, right. Was there any sign of blood or anything of that nature?
No.
What did you decide to do?
I decided to get rid of the car.
You decided to get rid of the car?
Yeah, yeah. It was just a sequence of events that progressed in stages, and then once you reached a stage, you couldn't go back. And people say, why did you panic when the car came back to you? Well, yeah, I panicked. What the hell's this thing doing here?
What did you do in relation to this car?
I went back down the yard, and there was nobody about a Sunday morning. So I took a gallon of diesel and put it in the passenger door to the front seat and set fire to it.
What did you then do with the car?
It was left either to the Monday or the Tuesday, and I put it into the scrapyard.
Detectives are desperate to track down the vehicle's movements since it was sold for cash in Elgin on the evening of April the 27th this year.
If the car had something to do with the disappearance of Arlene Fraser, it could be examined forensically, for example.
Yes.
It would be obvious to you that you were effectively destroying evidence.
Yeah.
Did you have any loyalty to Mr. Fraser?
Yes. He was very persuasive, an exceptionally persuasive man. I never saw him for a couple of weeks.
And Nat came to the farm, is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you ask about Arlene?
Yeah. He said she was dead.
He said she was dead?
Yeah, she wouldn't be back. His favourite topic was that she'd never be found. He said that the body had been burnt. There'd be no DNA and things like that. Teeth were ground up and disposed of. There'd be no dental records.
How did you physically react to this?
I wasn't very happy with him at that point.
That might sound a little mild. How were you feeling?
I was very frightened, and his initial comment to me was that he'd gotten help from someone down south.
What sort of help?
To murder Mrs. Fraser.
To murder Mrs. Fraser?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Did he tell you how that was accomplished?
He had once spoken about strangulation.
Right.
But
did you tell the police about this?
No, no.
Why not?
Well, I didn't see nothing to connect me with the disappearance of his wife except the car, and I decided I would say nothing.
November 1998, the police discovered that this car had been acquired.
Yes, yeah.
You were detained?
Yes.
For attempting to pervert the course of justice?
Yes.
And you paid a price for that?
I got a year's imprisonment.
All right. Well, that might be a suitable time to stop for lunch.
Yeah, well, we'll stop for lunch and sit at 2 o'clock.
The police say they offer you opportunity to come clean and all the rest, but it's never as simple as that. And when you're frightened, you just sit tight, and then you've lost your opportunity, and that opportunity just passes once, and you're pinned to the ground then. And I was pinned to the ground. I didn't know what to do.
I just wish you would be a bit more, I don't know, just contrite and emotional, and it's just terrible. I think that's how he is.
Yeah, obviously it is. Yeah.
There's no doubt that, as the witness himself acknowledged, when you start off on the premise that he deceived people and told lies, then that can present a challenge for a jury later. But it doesn't follow that everything said was not true or unreliable. Well, what do you make of him then? It's odd. It's odd. And he's got this cold, sort of unemotional manner, which I suspect is him. I don't think it's an act. And in a funny sort of way, might explain how he could carry all this information without bothering.
I think he's giving an impression of being a bit daft as well, which I don't think is... I think the transcripts that I'm going to take him to will show a different side of him.
Mr. Dick, can you think back with me over the past 14 years? Are you able to tell us today how many times you have lied about your involvement in the disappearance of Arlene Fraser?
No, I can't put a figure on it.
It's too many times to put a figure on, isn't it?
I don't know.
You don't know if it's too many times? It's more than 10?
I would say yes.
It's more than 20?
I don't know.
It's more than 100?
I doubt it.
You doubt it? Okay.
A good witness is an honest witness. But from the point of view of an accused person, a good witness might be a witness who's obviously telling lies, because then it's easier to persuade the jury that there shouldn't be a conviction.
The police in this interview actually even knew how much money you'd paid Kevin Ritchie for the car, didn't they?
Yes, yeah.
They knew that you'd paid Kevin Ritchie £50 to keep his mouth shut.
I think it was to do with the wheels.
You wanted the alloy wheels?
Yeah.
The car wasn't for you,
I know.
if you're telling us the truth.
No.
And the truth of the matter is that you asked Kevin Ritchie to keep quiet about you buying that car, and you gave him £50 for his silence.
No, I never asked Kevin Ritchie to keep quiet about the car. No.
Could you have a look, please, at Crown Production number 222? This is a transcript of your evidence from 2003. Have a look at line 19, please. And you give Mr. Ritchie £50 to keep his mouth shut. And your answer in 2003 was what?
Yes.
And the next question was, why should he keep his mouth shut? And your answer was?
Just to keep him quiet.
What you said this afternoon was a lie.
It was a mistake if it was. It was part of the thing then. It was a long struggle. After the first 2 days, I began to get tired.
On 1st October 1999, the police showed you transcripts of secret recordings of your conversations with Kevin Ritchie. Remember saying to Kevin Ritchie about the police, I just sat and fucking looked at them and fucking, I never even smiled at them. I just fucking waited until they gave up. You'll just have to weave your way through, but keep everything down to the barest minimum, because it's only either what you admit to or what they catch you with that they can do you. Remember giving that advice to Kevin Ritchie?
No.
Keep denying everything, and then what they can prove in court, that's a different matter. Do you remember that?
I'm not sure.
Kevin Ritchie then says, fuck a few other things they were digging at, trying to pin me on this fucking setting a car on fire. If that went to court, I would get done with it, Ken. And you said?
Oh aye, the gullible bastards sitting behind the front bench would swallow it.
So are the gullible bastards that you mentioned sitting behind the front bench, is that the sheriff or the jury?
It's just a term I used.
Meaning what?
I don't know. It was just a comment I made.
Defence, they've got to make the man look bad, but at the same time, you've got to hold off any temptation to come across as a bully, because that'll turn a jury against you.
If you're telling us the truth, he'd looked at getting a hitman, he'd burned her body, and that even the teeth had been ground down.
Yeah.
Do you remember in this particular statement then, 12th October, as regards Nat, although he's never told me what he's done, my opinion is that he was involved in his wife's disappearance.
That's my opinion, yes.
Well, it was more than your opinion, wasn't it? If you're telling us the truth, because Nat Fraser had confessed to you that he'd been responsible for his wife's disappearance and death. He's never told me what he's done.
Yeah.
That's what you said to the police in a voluntary statement on 12th October 1999, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
If you're telling us the truth now, that is a lie.
No.
It's not a lie.
No.
They can't both be true.
It's a comment that I made in a police
It's a lie, Mr. Dick. It's a lie, isn't it?
Okay, if you want to take it as a lie, fine.
What other possible way is there
Mr.
of
Dick,
taking it?
Whether you're telling the truth or telling lies in this court is not a matter for me, that's a matter for the jury. What is a matter for me is if a witness willfully refuses to answer questions that he must understand, or claims not to be able to remember things that he must be able to remember, fences with questions, tries to avoid answering questions, it can amount to a contempt of court for which the individual witness may be punished. I have come to the view you've been behaving in that way. Now, when the questioning continues, I want you to bear in mind the warning that I've given you.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes.
He hears a question and wants to answer a different question or wants to go off at a tangent. Now, why he's doing that is a question. I don't think I've ever seen a witness going into a seventh day in a High Court trial.
Arlene Fraser, you recall over the years that there was mention of you having an affair with her?
Yeah.
Of you being sexually attracted to her?
Yeah.
You held Arlene Fraser in high regard and you liked her. You agreed with that when the Advocate Deputy said it. But we've also heard what you said about her in taped conversations.
I once referred to her as a greedy bitch with money. It didn't really come out of my head, it was just what was going on at the time.
It didn't come out of your head, but it came out of your mouth?
That's correct, yes.
21st April, the Tuesday. It's an odd coincidence, is it not, if you spooked Arlene Fraser on the Tuesday exactly 1 week before she disappeared. That's an odd coincidence.
Can you think about Tuesday the 21st of April? That's the week before.
Yes.
On that occasion, did you speak with Arlene Fraser?
Yes, we did the usual hello, it's me, etc. And then she said, Hector Dick's been hanging about. Now, I think she used the word ages. I have in my mind...
Am I right that inquiries were carried out in relation to where Mr. Dick was on the 28th of April of 1998?
He gave an account, yes, he gave an account.
Was that considered a satisfactory alibi for him?
Not particularly, no. His alibi was not particularly robust. I wasn't as satisfied with his alibi.
All of the detail about Arlene Fraser's disappearance and her death, it all comes from you and what you say Nat Fraser's told you.
Most of it, yeah, I think so.
The hitman story, that comes from you?
Yeah.
Not from anywhere else?
No.
The car and disposal of the car, that was another problem for you, obviously, Mr. Dick.
Yeah, that was my own doing.
And the reason you tried to put the police off the scent is because you didn't want the car found?
In the initial stage, yeah.
Because it may be that you were more involved than you've ever been prepared to say. That's the truth, isn't it?
No, I'm no more involved than I've said.
It would be easier to dispose of a body on your farm than to dispose of a car, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You had equipment that could have been used on a human body.
I don't know.
The police were interested in the rendering plant.
Yes.
What's a rendering plant?
They're steam cookers.
They had another purpose?
It was from the meat and bone industry they came from.
What did it do with meat and bone?
If you steam cook long enough, everything falls to bits. It's for reducing fallen stock.
So for turning dead animals into meal?
Yes.
Your farm has never been fully and properly searched?
No.
No. Nat Fraser did not kill Arlene Fraser, nor did he tell you that he did?
He surely did.
And the obvious conclusion, Mr. Dick, from all of this, and especially your persistent lies, is that you killed Arlene Fraser.
Not correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. You're free to go.
Prosecution threw men to do the damage, and Nat's lawyer was exceptionally skillful this time at driving men to the dust. I got barracked and ridiculed, and he painted me blacker than black. You're just helpless against the accusation in court. You know fine it's fired at you directly, and you feel like screaming out and saying, my God, it's not my wife that's missing.
Court.
Well, I mean, my speech not been long, it's quite straightforward. Ladies and gentlemen, despite what you might have thought at one time, this is not the trial of Hector Dick. Let's go back. What? I'm in the wrong place.
Can a case be swung on a closing speech?
That's very difficult to answer. I don't know. But I'm in no doubt that a poor closing speech can be damaging to a case. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the first time you've ever been in a court. It may be that what you learned about what goes on in a court is from programmes on televisions, films, plays. But this has not been a play or a film. This is a real case involving real people and involves you making a very important decision. You may be forgiven for thinking at times this was the trial of Hector Dick, not the trial of Nat Fraser. You may well think that there should be other people sitting in that dock, and you may well be right. The Crown case against Nat Fraser is that he instructed, instigated and organised the murder of his wife. It is not, and never has been, that he actually killed her. And you might say, well, Advocate Deputy, how do you expect us to convict a man of murder when you don't have a body and you can't tell us how she was killed, if she was killed? How do we even know she's dead? Are you prepared to hold it established that Arlene Fraser is dead? Well, I suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that's really quite an easy task. She was a dedicated mother. Her mother told you that, actually, to her surprise, it turned out Arlene was a fantastic mother. So the notion that she would abandon the children is ridiculous. No birthdays, no Christmas presents, no cards at Easter, no anniversaries, no Mother's Day card, nothing. This is not a woman who's packed her stuff and left. Her clothes are there, her personal possessions are there. And I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, the only possible outcome of an assessment of that evidence is that she is dead. Now, was she murdered? The circumstances help you.
on a Tuesday morning. It's the one day that she's not at college. So if this is a random hit, then the person's very lucky because of all the days of the week, he or she picks the right day. It's a burglary gone wrong. Burglars go in and ransack. A burglar would never take the body. So let's think then of the possibilities. There's some random serial killer wandering around Elgin who happens only to target Arlene Fraser. That's ridiculous, I suggest. What else is it? I say, ladies and gentlemen, it points conclusively to it being a murder. And when you bring all the strands of the various evidence together, points to a premeditated murder. If it's a premeditated murder, that requires a motive. On the evidence, there is only one person in the entire world who has a motive to kill Arlene Fraser. What would be the evidence of motive? You could start with the evidence of the statement Mr. Fraser gave to the police on Wednesday the 29th of April 1998. Somebody gave me a whisper that Arlene was seeing a man who worked in Landmark Furniture. I did ask her if she was having a carry-on with another man, and she just told me no, and not to be so stupid. But it just festered in my head and kept gnawing at me. And I did ask myself, was it really happening? Was she clever, or was I imagining things? So here's the jealousy, I suggest.
I think she'd been going out socially, and he was green-eyed jealous of that.
Green-eyed jealous?
Yeah.
Did she ever say something to you about something her husband said?
No, I had said to her that if she wasn't going to live with him, she wouldn't be living with anybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was plainly not a happy marriage. Divorce was on the cards. And Nat Fraser knew that. Nat Fraser knew this was the end. Not that it might be, not that he hoped she might come back or it will all blow over. He knew. And then look at the possible financial consequences of divorce. You have evidence. Pedro Taylor told you money was important. Is money important to Mr. Fraser?
Yep.
Very important.
Yep. He loved to count it. He'd always a lot of cash on him and obsessed with money,
The financial advisor.
He initially thought his wife had been entitled to half of all the assets with a substantial value in the business, and it put his mind at rest, and he was reassured that although there'd be a financial implication, it would not be significant.
Nat Fraser, not just advise him, to reassure. You heard evidence from Arlene Fraser's solicitor that they got nowhere near understanding the financial worth of Nat Fraser. Item 5 in the first joint minute, Arlene Fraser and the accused Nat Gordon Fraser hold a joint life policy of insurance with a death benefit of £100,000. Even where there's not a body, payment could be made. While we're on motive, let's consider what motive Hector Dick could have. There was an idea floated that he appeared to have some sexual attraction at some time towards Arlene Fraser. Is it the case that he made an advance on her, killed her? Let's tease this out, let's think about it. What gain would he have financially? Well, none on the evidence, absolutely none. You're being asked to consider the possibility that Hector Dick murdered the young wife of his best man without any knowledge, instruction, counsel, instigation, anything to do with Nat Fraser. Completely independent. It's just coincidence that at that time, in the midst of this bitter breakup of a marriage, Hector Dick comes along, the big farmer goes in, kills her, and goes away again.
He's an odd character. I wouldn't buy a used car off Hector Dick. Certainly wouldn't have him round for dinner. But nobody's asking you to do that. You have to look at his evidence with great caution. And he explained that Nat Fraser wanted the Ford Fiesta. He needed a car in the next couple of days. There was an urgency about this. There's no doubt the Ford Fiesta car was acquired on the 27th through a meeting between Hector Dick and Kevin Ritchie at the farm. When you arrived, was there anybody else in his house?
Yeah, Nat Fraser.
Nat Fraser. Was he there when you arrived?
Yeah.
Yes. This is what lawyers call a circumstantial case. For hundreds of years, lawyers have talked about a cable analogy. If you think about a cable being made up of many strands, which individually are not particularly strong, but the more strands which are applied to the cable, the stronger the cable gets. The vent in the bedroom, the vent above the door in the bedroom was askew. Why, on learning of his wife's disappearance, would the first thing that occurs to Mr. Fraser is...
He informed me there was 2 stashes of money.
He said there was a stash of money behind the ventilation grill, and he thought that's what Arlene had taken.
He said that there was a vent and there was £500 missing. He suggested that Arlene could have taken it.
A curious thing to think about, you might think. Why mention the safe hiding spot? Unless, of course, he knew that's precisely what they would find. I suggest that was a quite despicable line adopted by him in a cynical attempt to put people off the trail. But it doesn't work, I suggest. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in a lengthy case, there's a little bit of evidence that takes everyone by surprise. Sometimes it's not expected or noticed or anticipated. And it came from Grant Fraser, the van boy working for Nat Fraser. He's the alibi. He said Nat Fraser said
that he knew the finger would be pointed straight at him.
Why would Nat Fraser make such a comment the morning after Arlene Fraser was missing? What is there to point the finger at if no crime's been committed? And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to take account of it. And I have every confidence that you will consider this case very carefully. It's a big, important decision to make. And I urge you to analyse, probe, test, challenge, test again the Crown case. But I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, that once you've done that, you will find that justice requires one outcome. And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to find Nat Fraser guilty of the murder of Arlene Fraser. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Advocate Depute.
This is a most difficult and anxious case. It is difficult to have to sit and listen to intimate details in the lives of other people, and then, harder still, to be required to judge. We trust you to recognise the truth when you hear it, but also to pause if you're unsure or when you're left with a reasonable doubt. We cannot provide you with lie detectors, but we trust you to recognise when something is a lie, or when something is wholly incredible or unlikely. And in this case, I suggest to you that much of the crucial Crown evidence is unreliable. I don't mean to be overly critical of the Advocate Depute, but I suggest that he's been guilty of offering assumption and accepting hindsight in his suggested approach to the case. The Advocate Depute said at one point, on the evidence, there is only one person in the world who has a motive to kill Arlene Fraser. I suggest that that is a dramatic overstatement. If you examine the evidence, I suggest you may find that what you've been offered is a feeble justification and an unconvincing motive for murder. Maybe Nat Fraser would end up having to pay more in the divorce than he wanted to, but is that not often, perhaps even usually, the situation? If that is a motive for murder, then this country has thousands of men the police will really need to keep a close eye on. We have been given a picture of Nat Fraser not caring at all, not showing any interest, but do you think that that's entirely fair or accurate? When Nat Fraser got the call about Arlene actually being missing, remember that Ian Taylor told the police, "I could just see Nat draining," meaning the colour from his face.
He'd obviously got a shock at the news he was told.
Colour draining from your face might be something that you accept would be hard to fake. To Irene Higgins, Nat Fraser appeared concerned. With Constable Hall even telling us that Nat Fraser offered to call the hospital.
He offered to go up to the hospital. He was expressing his concerns, what she could have been, couldn't say what she had.
Isabel Thompson, Arlene's mother, told the police, "I told him to pull himself together."
He asked to see the children, and I said, because he was in such a state, wouldn't it be wise?
What to make of that then? Pull yourself together. Don't let the kids see you like that. Consider for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, how would you prove that you didn't do something?
I'd like to take this opportunity to appeal to anyone with information.
Denial on its own may seem weak. Nat Fraser has made his position clear. I did not do those things, and he goes further and says I didn't do them because I wasn't there. It's the alibi which the Crown accepts. The Crown's position is, yes, but so what? Because he planned the murder of his wife. He organised it, he arranged it, he instructed it. And where does the evidence of the plan come from? Entirely from Hector Dick, who, if he came in from outside and was soaking wet and said it was raining, you'd have to put your hand out the window to check. The case depends essentially on the evidence of human beings. It does so where the main Crown witness to a supposed plan to murder is a liar. If you disbelieve Hector Dick, I suggest it is simple and you acquit. I suggest that in any event there is certainly room for reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest standard of proof in our courts. If a jury were to think that an accused person was possibly guilty, that would not be good enough and they would have to acquit. Even if the jury were to be satisfied that an accused person was probably guilty, that would not be good enough and the jury would require to acquit. Murder is the most serious charge in our courts. This is not a game of Cluedo. No one appears later on with the black envelope producing a card. There is no right answer but your answer. Words like proof beyond a reasonable doubt, they are only words until they are brought to life by a jury. When you consider these words, along with all of the evidence in the case, I suggest that what will remain at the end is a reasonable doubt, and if so, it is your duty to acquit. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard two clear, powerful speeches analysing the evidence from their respective points of view. The question for you is whether the Crown has proved the charge beyond reasonable doubt. You must put out of your minds any feelings of emotion or sympathy that you may have for anyone involved in this case. The accused has not given evidence himself. An accused person is perfectly entitled not to give evidence. He is presumed to be innocent. There are 3 verdicts open to you. These are guilty, not guilty, and not proven. Verdicts of not guilty and not proven are both verdicts of acquittal. Will you please now retire to consider your verdict?
We've presented it, we've done everything we can. It's out of my hands. There's no more I can do. I leave it to the jury to determine.
You've got 15 people that has never come together before for anything and will never come together for anything else. Are they being told the truth? Can they rely on what they're being told?
In spite of all the legal directions that they're given, juries notice. They will wonder why it is that the accused did not give evidence.
It's a big decision. Yeah, they say don't take emotions into account, but they're only human. So, yeah, they won't be taking anybody in the trial's emotions, but their own emotions. You can't just shut off because someone asked you to shut off. And it's not as simple as going in there and saying, right, is he guilty or is he not guilty? There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of evidence to go over as well. 5 weeks is a long time to make a decision in a matter of hours.
If it's not proven, then he obviously walks free. If he's found not guilty, I think he may be able to seek compensation. But I've not asked any questions because I'm not sure I want to know.
Guilty verdict obviously means that you remain where it should be, and it's justice for our family. Of course, we do have a problem because Jamie and Natalie are Arlene's family, but unfortunately, they're also Nat Fraser's family, and we don't really know if they would prefer their dad to get out, because it's better to have a father, even if he is a criminal, than to have no parents at all.
They are so hurt that their daughter's been taken away from them, so I'm not necessarily angry at them, because if it happened to me, I would be angry. And I do feel for them, and I do know I love them. You know, they're my family, they're the only connection to my mum I've got.
What would it be like to get Dad home?
Oh, it would be... I'd probably be the happiest person in the world.
We have a verdict.
Court number 3, jury verdict. Court number 3.
Oh, hello there.
That's Jim.
The verdict itself is either 1 or 2 words and is delivered in a moment. But the consequences of that for all the parties is hugely significant. In the case of the accused, it means the difference between life imprisonment on the one hand, and on the other hand, walking out into the sunshine.
Members of the jury, will your spokesperson please rise? Have you reached the verdict in respect of the accused Nat Gordon Fraser?
The jury has reached the verdict.
What is your verdict in respect of the charge on the indictment?
Guilty.
Is that verdict unanimous or by a majority?
Majority.
My Lord, I move for sentence against Nat Gordon Fraser. I tender a schedule of previous convictions. My Lord, there was a history of domestic disharmony. At one stage, many years prior to 1998, Arlene Fraser sought sanctuary at a woman's refuge. His most significant previous conviction is the assault upon Arlene Fraser by the accused by manual strangulation on the 22nd of March 1998, just over 5 weeks prior to the murder. My Lord, it's obvious from the evidence that Arlene Fraser was a loving mother, daughter, and sister. She is sorely missed by all her family and friends, and in addition, they have the agony of not knowing where her remains are and not being able to have a dignified funeral.
Thank you, Advocate Depute. Mr. Scott.
Lord, this is a situation where there is very little which can be said in mitigation. But it would clearly be appropriate, and indeed in my submission necessary, to take into account such time as has already been spent in custody.
Yes.
Lord.
Nat Gordon Fraser, would you stand, please? You have been found guilty of murder. You arranged for someone to kill your wife, Arlene, and dispose of her body. Thus, you instigated in cold blood the premeditated murder of your wife and mother of your children, then aged 10 and 5 years. The murder and disposal of the body must have been carried out with ruthless efficiency, for there has not been a trace of Arlene Fraser from that day to this. The shocking and wicked nature of your involvement in the commission of this crime would merit a lengthy punishment well in excess of 20 years. Having regard to the history of the case, I shall restrict that to a period of 17 years. That is all. Would the escort take the prisoner away, please? Ladies and gentlemen, you will understand that sitting on a jury is an enormously important and responsible thing to do. It is one of the most important functions that citizens can fulfill. So I thank you for your service, and I bid you good day.
Court.
Well done. That was a very good job by you. That was very thorough.
Done.
Thank you.
Pleasure travelling with you as ever. We'll beat you one day.
This is a significant day for me, well, for everyone, obviously. From this day forward, as far as I'm concerned, Nat Fraser can take the information that he has in his head back to the cell. I don't want to know any more. We've lived with this for 14 years. Every time I hear those words, remains have been found, you know, I stop and I think, could it be Arlene? But it's never going to be. I have to accept that. It's never going to be. In the early days, you know, when it was pouring rain, I would look out the window and think, you know, where are you, Arlene? And I would think about Arlene out there on her own. I don't think that way now. I accept that Arlene is long gone, long gone. Arlene wouldn't want me constantly to dig up her bones, because that's what it is now, just digging up bones. It's time to move on. We've all planted a rose. We have a rose named after Arlene, Rose at Arlene. But that's the closest that we've got to a grave.
I know he's still here, but I can't have him. He's sitting there and he's been convicted of something he's not, you know, he's not done it. I think that's the harder bit, because I don't have any parents. Oh. If I could change what's happened, in an instant I would change it, but I'm still normal. I've still worked, I still went to school. I've just got a different childhood.
What if one day he told you he did do it?
I wouldn't believe him. I wouldn't believe him. No way.